Welcome to Heartbreak Chronicles. Alex's keyboard makes a soft tapping sound in the dead of night, and the light from the computer screen reflects off his glasses, creating two small rectangular patches of light. The only sounds in his home office were the faint hum of dual monitors and the occasional keyboard. The clock on the wall says it's 11:47 a.m., and a half-full cup of coffee has cooled next to the mouse pad, emblazoned with the words, "World's Best Dad." A Father's Day gift from Thomas 3 years ago. At the ripe old age of 42, Alexander Hood has mastered the art of late-night programming. His eyes occasionally glanced over to the delicate brass table lamp in the corner of his desk, an object Marissa had insisted on purchasing from that overpriced antique store downtown. The thought of her enthusiasm that day still managed to send a warm current through his heart, even if his eyes now ached with dryness from staring at the screen for so long. A sudden laugh drifted in through his half-open window, interrupting his thoughts. The laugh was familiar Marissa's laugh, the kind that still made his heart race even after 15 years of marriage. But hearing the laughter at this point in time made him stop what he was doing. His fingers hung above the keyboard, listening intently. The night wind sent her voice in clearly, each word piercing his heart like a dagger. "Can you believe he's still oblivious? 3 kids, all yours. And he's still paying for private school." Alex's hands began to shake as the monitor's glow suddenly became blinding, as if mocking him. He rose from his seat, the expensive leather chair creaking slightly in the silence that followed. His legs involuntarily led him to the window while his mind refused to process what he had just heard. Marissa's voice continued, softer but still clearly audible. "I know, Bruce. Sometimes I feel guilty, but then I remember how well you've planned everything." Bruce Cummins, the name echoed in Alex's mind, bringing up a flurry of images of Bruce at their Christmas party, Bruce giving his mother investment advice, Bruce holding the baby at Lucas's christening, Bruce's ever-so-perfect smile and tailored suits. Family friend who has managed his mother's finances for 16 years. Alex's knees became weak, and he had to grab the window frame to support himself. The rough wooden window frame was the only thing that felt real to him in that moment. Outside, Marissa paced the garden path, her silhouette illuminated by security lights. She was wearing her favorite silk nightgown, a gift he'd given her for her anniversary last year. Her other hand waved exaggeratedly as she spoke, oblivious to the fact that someone was listening in. "Next week? Yes, I can arrange that." She continued, her voice taking on that perky tone that Alex had once always loved. "Caroline's beach house is perfect this season. She has offered to babysit the kids." Is her mother Caroline involved? The discovery hit him like a physical blow, forcing air out of his lungs. His fingers gripping the window frame tightened until his knuckles turned pale. Memories began to flood back, demanding to be revisited. Those emergency hospital calls that always occurred when Bruce was in town. The frequent financial planning meetings with his mother that often lasted late into the night. The wrinkles at the corners of Thomas's eyes when he smiled, which resembled Bruce's, Emma's chestnut-colored hair, which was so different from his own dark brown or Marissa's blonde hair. Lucas's innate talent for numbers that mirrored Bruce's financial acumen. He used to ignore these ideas and laugh at his friends' comments about how little his children resembled him. "Genes are just so wonderful," he would say, proud of his solid marriage and happy family. Now, each memory twisted like a knife, revealing layers of deception he'd been too trusting to see. Marissa laughed again, the sound now sounding harsh and unbearable. "You always know what to say, don't you?" "Yes, I'll wear that blue dress you like." There was a pause. "I love you too. Good night." Alex watched as his wife ended the call and held the phone close to her chest, a dreamy smile on her face that he had thought was reserved only for him. Standing there, bathed in moonlight, she looked like the woman he'd fallen in love with all those years ago. But now he sees her very differently. A stranger in his wife's appearance, an actress who has perfected her role over 15 years of marriage. She turned and walked back into the house, her silk robe glistening in the light of the security lamp. Alex backed away from the window and walked noiselessly through his office. He couldn't face her now, not after he'd just realized that the life he'd known was just an elaborate lie. His computer screen still showed the project he had been working on, lines of code that now seemed meaningless. The "world's best dad" mug on the table seemed to mock him. He suppressed the urge to sweep everything on the table to the floor as if his reality had been shattered, breaking the carefully maintained illusion of a domestic facade once and for all. Instead, he mechanically sat back in his chair. Leather chairs no longer feel comfortable and nothing feels right. He could hear Marissa's footsteps downstairs, through the kitchen. The everyday sounds of their home, the hum of the refrigerator, the ticking of the ancient desk clock in the hallway, the gentle hum of the computer cooling fan, all of them seemed to take on a sinister quality. With trembling hands, he found his cell phone, opened the browser, and typed in Bruce Cummins, something he'd never felt the need to do before. Image loading out. Bruce at a charity event. Bruce receives an award for his work as a financial advisor. Bruce at a social gathering with his wife Krista. In every photo, that perfect smile is looking back at him. The smile his children inherited. The sound of Marissa's footsteps on the stairs brought him back to reality. He quickly closed the browser and turned back to the code. The doorknob turned and she appeared in the doorway, still wrapped in her silk robe. "You're still awake?" Her voice still carried its usual warmth, but now Alex heard the falseness in it. "Don't work too late, honey. Come to bed soon." He forced himself to look at her and smile, like his world hadn't just fallen apart. "It's almost done. Go ahead, and I'll be there soon." She flew him a kiss, a gesture she had done 1,000 times before closing the door. Alex waited until her footsteps disappeared before he allowed his disguise to crumble. His hands balled into fists as the full weight of betrayal pressed down on him. Tomorrow, he will begin his investigation. Tomorrow, he'll start planning. But tonight, in the solitude of his office, Alexander Hood allowed himself to feel the full weight of his loss. Silent tears fell on his keyboard as 15 years of memories transformed from precious moments to carefully planned deceptions. The next 2 weeks were spent in a blur of routine and covert investigation. Alex maintains a normal schedule of mechanical precision while embarking on a plan that will reveal the full scope of his family's betrayal. His first call is to Jared Glover, a private investigator recommended by a co-worker who went through a messy divorce years ago. They met at a small cafe 2 towns away from Millbrook, away from prying eyes. Glover doesn't look anything like a typical private investigator. He wore an iron business suit and carried a tablet instead of a laptop. But his eyes have that keen investigative quality that Alex needs. "Tell me everything," Glover said, his voice low and professional as he stirred his Americano. "And don't leave anything out." Alex recounted the night's discovery, keeping his voice steady despite the inner waves. As he spoke, Glover's fingers moved across the tablet, skillfully jotting down notes. 16 years of friendship with Bruce Cummins, Glover mused, looking up from the screen. "And your mother's involvement. That's an interesting angle. We'll start here." Over the next few days, Glover's updates arrived in the form of encrypted emails, each revealing another dimension of deception. The first break came from Caroline's beach house record. "Your mother's estate has been hosting regular financial planning retreats for the past 15 years, Glover reported at their second meeting, always during your business trips. Utility bills show consistent usage patterns, with spikes in both electricity and water used during these periods." Alex's stomach churned as he examined the carefully documented evidence. Photos show Marissa's car parked in the driveway of the beach house on several occasions, always alongside Bruce's Mercedes. The timestamps match perfectly with her alleged hospital emergency. Investigations into medical records are even more devastating. Glover's contacts in the hospital's records department uncovered a pattern of falsified emergency calls that were created to provide an alibi for Marissa's absence. But the most damning evidence came from another medical source. "I've obtained the DNA test results," Glover announced at their last meeting, sliding a thick manila envelope across the table. "These are the tests that were conducted shortly after the birth of each of your children by Bruce Cummins at his private facility in the next state." Alex's hand trembled as he opened the envelope. The clinical language of the genetic tests made clear what he had already begun to suspect, that Thomas, Emma, and Lucas were not DNA related to him. The genetic markers of the 3 children are an exact match to Bruce Cummins. "There's more," Glover continued, his voice gentler. "I found a series of email exchanges between your mother and Marissa that began before your wedding. You should read it yourself." The printed email told a story that made Alex's blood curdle. His mother orchestrated the entire relationship, believing that Bruce was a better match for Marissa, but was unable to convince her son to call off the engagement. So she creates opportunities for Bruce and Marissa to meet, encourages their affair, and helps maintain their deception for 15 years. An email Caroline wrote to Marissa before the wedding was particularly shocking. "Bruce is the better choice, honey, and we both know it. But Alex is stable and successful enough to be completely loyal to you. This way you can have it all: Alex's consistency and Bruce's passion. Believe me, I've given it careful thought." From the beginning, the betrayal was methodically planned and executed. His entire marriage was a carefully constructed lie, and his own mother was the architect of that lie. Financial records paint a clearer picture. Bruce funnels money through various accounts to create a safety net for Marissa and the children. Caroline helped manage these transactions, using her position as the family matriarch to hide money transfers in legitimate business transactions. "Your mother's beach house was more than just a meeting place," Glover explained, pulling up more documents on his tablet. "It was used as collateral for several investments in Bruce's name." The property itself was part of a complex financial arrangement that benefited both Bruce and Marissa. Alex sat back in his chair, the weight of every discovery pressing down on him. The cafe was busy around them. People went on with their normal lives, and his world continued to unravel with each new piece of evidence. "Where's Bruce's wife?" Alex asked suddenly, remembering Krista Wagoner Cummins, the elegant woman who had attended countless family dinners, sitting unknowingly across from her husband's mistress. Glover shook his head. "There's no indication that she knows anything. She's as much a victim of this as you are." He paused to check his notes. "However, there is evidence that Bruce has been moving assets away from their joint account for years. He's been preparing for something." The investigation revealed a web of deception so complex that it took Glover nearly 30 pages to document all the connections. Bank statements, property records, medical documents, and surveillance photos paint a picture of betrayal that spans a century and a half. "Mr. Hood," Glover said near the end of their last meeting, "in my 20 years as an investigator, I've never seen anything like this. The level of the program, the duration of the deception, it's unprecedented." Alex nodded, his face a calm mask that hid the storm within. "Thank you for your thorough investigation, Mr. Glover. Your final payment will be transferred today." As he drove home that night, Alex's thoughts drifted to his children. No, Bruce's children. Despite everything he's learned, he still can't help but see their faces. Thomas concentrating on his homework at the kitchen table, Emma practicing her violin in the living room, and Lucas building complex structures with Legos. They are innocent in all this, yet their very existence is proof of betrayal. The hardest part is staying sane at home. Every morning, he kisses Marissa goodbye when she leaves for the hospital. Every night, he helps the children with their homework, plays games with them, and reads them bedtime stories, all the while carrying the knowledge that every moment of his family's life is built on a lie. But Alexander Hood is no longer the trusting husband who stood at that window 2 weeks ago. With each piece of evidence Glover uncovers, it's as if a new version of himself emerges within him, calculating, calm, and determined to orchestrate a reckoning that will rock Millbrook to its very foundations. Miranda Hughes' office embodies everything about her reputation: fluid, majestic, and meticulously organized. Alex sat across her desk and watched as she methodically reviewed Glover's findings. She paused, adjusting her gold-rimmed glasses. "Very thorough. Your investigator did an excellent job." She looked up, her sharp eyes studying Alex's face. "The question is, what do you want to do with it?" Alex specifically chose Miranda precisely because of her reputation. She is not known for her kindness or understanding, but for her ruthlessness and efficiency. News articles about her most famous cases are displayed on the walls of her office, each proving her ability to destroy her opponents in court. "I want everything," Alex replied, his voice quiet but firm, "but I want it done right. Leave no room for counterattacks. Give them no chance to prepare. I want them to feel as caught off guard as I did." Miranda's lips rose slightly. "Then we need to be strategic. First, we need to protect your assets. I assume you haven't faced any of them yet." "No, I've kept everything normal." "Good, keep doing that." She pressed her desk phone button. "Janet, priority contact Gustavo Goodrich, within the hour." Within the hour, Gustavo Goodrich joined them. This financial advisor has a reputation to match Miranda's, specializing in high-stakes divorces that require quick and legal protection and relocation of assets. The timing needs to be perfect, Gustavo explained, unfolding the papers on Miranda's conference table. We need to transfer your assets in stages, nothing too obvious. Offshore accounts, blind trusts, legitimate business investments that are not easily tracked or questioned. The next few hours are spent developing a strategy that leaves nothing to chance. Alex's software company will be ready for sale, with its assets protected through a series of complex transactions. Individual accounts will be safeguarded, property redistributed, and investments reorganized. Where are the kids? Alex asked, a question he had been afraid to ask. Miranda's expression softened slightly, the closest she came to expressing sympathy. Legally, you could contest custody based on fraud, but given the DNA evidence. She let the sentence hang there. I'm not going to put them through this, Alex decided. They're innocent in this. But I wanted to make sure that they were covered through channels that neither Marissa nor Bruce had access to. Gustavo nodded, taking notes. We could set up separate trusts for each child, with ironclad terms, professional trustees, and no possibility of interference by either party. Planning continued late into the night as every aspect of Alex's life was scrutinized and every weakness addressed. Miranda's assistant brings dinner, and they continue to work, empty takeout containers piling up as the hours pass. The hardest part, Miranda warns, will be keeping things normal at home while we organize everything. One slip-up, one hint that something is wrong, and they may start moving assets themselves. Alex remembered the night before, helping Emma with her math homework. She looked up at him with Bruce's eyes, asking for help in understanding the score. The pain was almost unbearable, but he smiled, explained the problem, and praised her progress. I can handle it, he assured them, without knowing it, and I've been handling it for 15 years. I can manage another couple weeks. The next few days were plunged into attentive daily life. The morning began with a family breakfast, and Alex watched Marissa prepare lunch for the kids now, her and Bruce's kids. He'd kiss her goodbye, taste the lie on her lips, and drive to work like nothing had changed. During the day, he methodically prepares the company for the change. Private meetings with the executive team focused on the restructuring and were carefully worded to imply that this was routine business optimization and not preparation for a sale. Every decision is calculated, every move precise. Evenings are the most challenging. Family dinners around their mahogany dining room table turn into exercises in self-control. Alex would listen to Thomas talk about his soccer practice, noting how the boy's vivid gestures mirrored Bruce's demeanor. After dinner, Emma would practice her violin, the melody echoing through the house, while Alex sat in his study, pretending to work and actually coordinating with Gustavo via encrypted email. Lucas, the youngest, at 9, proved to be the hardest to face. One night, as Alex helped him build a model rocket, the boy looked up at him with pure adoration in his Bruce's eyes and said, "You're the best dad ever." The words hit him like a physical blow, but Alex kept his smile. "Thanks, man. Hand me that glue, will you?" Meanwhile, his revenge machine moves forward with ruthless precision. Gustavo created a complex network of financial transfers, each of which was legal but intentionally difficult to trace. Assets move through multiple jurisdictions and end up in places where recovery is virtually impossible. The wonderful thing, Gustavo explained during one of their secure video calls, is that on the surface, everything looks completely normal. We're not hiding anything. We're just relocating assets through perfectly legal channels. Miranda's plan was equally elaborate. She prepares documents for every possible scenario, anticipating any legal challenges that may arise while maintaining absolute confidentiality. "We've documented every instance of fraud," she reported at a late-night meeting in her office. "DNA testing, financial deception, your mother's involvement, everything. When we take action, they will have no wiggle room." The hardest part was watching Marissa continue her deception. She maintains her emergency hospital call routine, each now transparent to Alex, as another meeting with Bruce. He noticed that she always wore specific jewelry in these days, and those were not bought by him. The blue dress she favored hung in their closet like a silent accusation. Caroline's weekly visits turned into an exercise in patience. His mother would arrive with homemade cookies, doting on the grandchildren she helped plan out of existence. She would inquire about his work, his plans, all the while knowing that she had helped destroy the foundation of his life. "You work too hard, dear," she said on one such visit, reaching out to touch his arm. "And you look tired. Maybe you should take a vacation." Alex smiled, wondering if she wanted him to leave town so Bruce and Marissa could use the beach house again. "It's too busy right now, Mom. Maybe later." The children remain his anchor to keep his sanity, despite knowing the truth about their father's identity. Alex realizes he can't stop loving them. They are as much victims of this deception as he is. Every night he would check on them as they slept, their innocent faces peaceful in the darkness. He set up the trust as planned, working with an independent trustee who will ensure the children's financial security no matter what happens. The document is carefully worded to protect them from any repercussions while ensuring that neither Marissa nor Bruce have access to the funds. "These trusts are unbreakable," Gustavo assured him. "And no matter what happens, the children will be taken care of." Alex's transformation continues as the weeks go by. Gone is the trusting husband who stood by the office window, replaced by a strategist who sees every interaction as a move in a well-planned game. He writes down every phone call Marissa makes, every meeting his mother arranges, every chance encounter with Bruce at a social event. Each piece of evidence is carefully cataloged and added to Miranda's growing arsenal. Bank statements, phone records, surveillance photos, all building up to the moment when the ultimate truth is revealed. The appearance he maintains is perfect. He attends school functions, hosts dinner parties, and plays golf with business associates while orchestrating systematic dismantling of the lies that have shaped his life for 15 years. "Your poker face is impressive," Miranda observed in one session. "But remember that when the time comes, you need to be ready to deal with the emotional impact. It's not just about the legal and financial aspects." Alex nodded, his expression calm. "I've been dealing with the emotional side of this for a couple weeks now. When the time comes, I'll be ready." As fall deepens and Millbrook's leaves begin to change color, Alex's preparations are nearing completion. The pieces are in place, the assets are secure, the evidence is organized, and the legal documents are ready. He has become the architect of a different type of deception, one that is used not to sustain lies but to expose them. In his home office, late at night, he sometimes stood at the same window where he first heard Marissa's call. The gardens below are now empty, the flowers fading with the season. Soon, very soon, everything will change. But for now, Alexander Hood keeps his watch, a silent strategist ready to expose 15 years of betrayal. Fall in Millbrook paints the trees amber and crimson, contrasting with the gray clouds that gather over the Hood home. The house reeked of pre-Thanksgiving activities, and the aroma of roasting turkey and freshly baked pies filled the air, masking the tension Alex carried on his shoulders. He adjusts the formal place settings in the dining room, each position set meticulously. "Everything needs to be perfect," he muttered, adjusting the position of a silver fork for the third time. Each place setting contains 2 envelopes, one cleverly tucked under a napkin, the other hidden in his study. Timing will be everything. Marissa is busy in the kitchen, her designer dress protected by an apron that says, "Kiss the chef." She'd been preparing since dawn, thinking it would be another Thanksgiving dinner to show off for their social circle. The irony of her family's performance didn't escape Alex's notice. "Honey, can you see if your mother needs help bringing in her pie?" Marissa cried, wiping her hands on her apron. "You know she insists on making them herself." "Of course," Alex replied, his voice smooth despite what was coming. The manila envelopes in his study felt like ammunition waiting to be deployed. The doorbell rang and Bruce and Krista Cummins were the first to arrive with perfectly matching outfits in fall colors. Bruce brought along an expensive bottle of wine that Alex recognized as the same vintage they had shared at his 40th birthday celebration. "Alex, my friend." Bruce's handshake was strong, his smile confident. "Beautiful day for a family gathering." Krista placed a false kiss on Alex's cheek, her designer perfume hovering in the air. "The house looks lovely, and Marissa has outdone herself once again." Alex watched Bruce's gaze glance to the kitchen where Marissa was working, a subtle glance he'd seen countless times before but never really understood until now. "Make yourself at home. Drinks are in the sitting room." Caroline arrived next, with her signature pumpkin pie, her gray hair perfectly combed, her attire carefully chosen to project the image of a doting grandmother who adores her grandchildren. "Here's my boy," she smiled, reaching out to pat Alex's cheek. "Help your mommy with these, okay?" More guests arrive, carefully chosen witnesses to the events that will unfold. James and Patricia Wellington, from the hospital board where Marissa works. Richard Chun, Bruce's business partner. Sarah and Michael Davidson, neighbors whose teenage daughter babysits for the Hood family to babysit. The kids help with final prep work at the kitchen island. Thomas stood tall, his movements mirroring Bruce's confident demeanor. Emma was arranging flowers in a vase, her chestnut hair, Bruce's hair, shining in the afternoon sun. Lucas sits, wobbling his legs, and is answering a math puzzle, displaying the same numerical aptitude as his real father. "Everything's ready," Marissa announced, taking off her apron to reveal her carefully selected dress. "Shall we begin?" Guests sat around the huge dining table, a picture of affluent suburban life. Crystal goblets sparkle under chandeliers, silver flatware shimmers on crisp, white linen napkins, and every location sets and hides its explosive secrets. Alex rose for the traditional toast, holding a crystal glass. The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to him expectantly. This is that moment, the moment that weeks of preparation have led to. "Before we begin," he said, his voice clear across the table, "I have something to share with you." He reached under his napkin and made a show of finding envelopes. "Oh, look at this. Everyone seems to have one." Confusion flickered across the faces of the others as they found their envelopes. Marissa's perfectly manicured fingers trembled slightly as she picked up her envelope. Bruce's confident smile faltered. Caroline's hand froze halfway to her glass. "Please," Alex continued, his voice taking on an edge that made several of the guests shift uncomfortably. "Open them. I insist." The sound of ripping paper filled the silence. Alex continued to stand and watch the carefully planned moment of revelation unfold. Krista was the first to react, her sharp intake of breath breaking the silence of the room as she stared at the photo of Bruce entering Caroline's beach house with Marissa at his side. The date stamp in the corner matches his supposed business trip. Bank statements show regular transfers to offshore accounts. "What is it?" she whispered, her voice rising. "Bruce?" But Bruce is staring at his envelope and turns pale when he sees the DNA test results. His gaze quickly turned to the children, who were watching the scene unfold with increasingly confused expressions. Marissa's hand trembles as she reads her file containing emails, planning meetings, and coordinated deceptions between her and Caroline spanning 15 years. Her carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the loss of blood from her face. Caroline's envelope contains trust fund documents showing Alex systematically dismantling her control over the family's assets, as well as copies of her own emails attesting to her role as a deception designer. "How dare you?" Krista's voice broke the silence. She grabbed her glass, the contents slicing through the air and splashing onto Bruce's expensive shirt. 15 years, all 3 kids. The room erupted into chaos. Patricia Wellington sucked in a backwards breath, her hand flying to her mouth. Richard Chun jolted to his feet. Mr. and Mrs. Davidson exchanged horrified glances. "Alex," Caroline spoke, her voice quivering. "I only want the best dash." "Best for whom, mother?" Alex's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. "It was for your son, whose life you helped destroy, or for your friend Bruce, who you think is a better match." Marissa sat in shocked silence as her carefully constructed world crumbled around her. The children looked between the adults, and the confusion gradually changed to clarity. "Dad?" Thomas's voice trembled. "What happened?" Alex turned to the kids, heartbreak striking again. "I think it's time for you 3 to go upstairs. Sarah, do you mind?" Sarah Davidson quickly guides the children out, casting a sympathetic glance as she leaves. Their footsteps on the stairs seem to echo throughout the house. "Can't you just face us in private?" Bruce finally spoke, his usual confidence replaced by cold fury. "As private as you were as best man at my wedding?" Alex replied, his voice like ice. "Or are you as private as you are as a godfather to your own children without my knowledge?" "No, Bruce, you chose your audience years ago. I'm just providing the last act." Krista's tears had given way to anger. "My lawyer will be in touch with you." She spat the words at Bruce. "And you'll hear from Valerie Stevens first thing tomorrow." "Don't rush things now." Bruce began, but Krista interrupted him. Rush? In a hurry, like hiding assets for years and planting a second family behind me? Miranda Hughes has been in touch, hasn't she, Alex? She turned to him, finding a new ally in the destruction. Alex nodded. Everything's ready. Every account, every transaction, every meeting at the beach house. There's nothing to hide. Caroline reached out and grabbed her son's arm. Alexander, please, we can explain everything dash. He pulled away from her touch as if burned. Explain? Like you explained to Marissa before our wedding. How she could have it all. My stability and Bruce's passion? I read the email, Mother. Every letter. Elaborate dinners go cold. Turkeys are forgotten. And the Thanksgiving table becomes a stage for 15 years of deception to be exposed. Outside, the gathering storm had finally erupted, and the rain slammed against the windows as if nature itself was trying to wash away the lies. You're going to ruin everything, Marissa finally said, her voice barely audible. No, Alex corrected her, his calmness more frightening than his anger. You ruined everything the moment you decided to build our marriage on a lie. I'm just exposing the truth. Now, I think dinner is ready. He sat at the head of the table, surrounded by the wreckage of relationships and the smell of cooling food. The perfect Thanksgiving dinner has turned into a feast of consequences, each course seasoned with painful revelations and broken trust. The rain continues to fall, signaling the beginning of a storm that will reshape the lives of everyone here. In his pocket, Alex felt the weight of the second envelope, the one containing the next phase of his carefully planned program. But that would wait, for now, as he watched 15 years of deception consume itself in the warm light of the chandelier in his dining room. The weeks that followed unfolded with a carefully choreographed dance of destruction. Miranda Hughes' office became ground zero for the dismantling of 3 marriages and a family empire. The divorce proceedings will be swift, Miranda explained to Alex, spreading the papers out on her mahogany desk. Your evidence is comprehensive and frankly, they have no leg to stand on. In another high-rise office on the other side of town, Valerie Stevens is having a similar conversation with Krista Cummins. The two women form a vengeful alliance, and their combined legal assault brings Bruce's carefully constructed financial facade crashing down. Your husband has been planning for this possibility for years, Valerie elaborated, her red-painted nail-polished fingers tapping on her tablet. But he didn't anticipate that we'd find out about his offshore holdings. The children are still living at home with Marissa as they are protected from the immediate impact by not being present during the Thanksgiving revelations. Alex's decision to refuse to fight for custody surprised everyone, except Miranda. Are you sure about this? Miranda asked in the initial post-Thanksgiving meeting. Considering the circumstances, the court might be sympathetic. Alex's response was firm. They've already lost a father figure. I'm not going to let them lose their home again. But I want the trust fund ironed out so that neither Marissa nor Bruce can touch a dime of the kids' money. The trust fund arrangement became a masterpiece of legal architecture, with independent trustees, strict spending conditions, and education provisions to ensure that Thomas, Emma, and Lucas were not left wanting by their parents' choice. Marissa tries to fight the terms of her divorce, but every challenge is met with a swift, devastating response from Alex's carefully crafted file. Her attorney, James Patterson, eventually advised her to accept the terms. Mrs. Hood, Patterson said, his voice heavy. Mr. Hood's evidence is comprehensive and irrefutable. Continuing to fight will only deplete resources that would be better reserved for your children's future. The hospital board launched its own investigation after receiving evidence that Marissa had faked an emergency call. The prestigious position she had held for years suddenly became precarious. Bruce's financial empire begins to crumble under the combined assault of Alex's evidence and Krista's legal team. His clients, many of them prominent Millbrook residents, began quietly withdrawing from their accounts. He's losing everything, Krista told Alex during one of their strategy sessions, her initial anger hardening into cold resolve. The house, the summer properties, most of the clients. It's what he deserves. Caroline's attempts to protect her assets proved futile. The family trust, which she had used as a tool to control her son's life, had been systematically dismantled. The social status she had built up in Millbrook, accumulated over decades, disappeared as her role in the deception became public. I'm just trying to protect you, she pleads as she tries to meet with Alex in Miranda's office. Bruce has connections and influence, and I thought, you think you know better than your own son what's best? Miranda interrupted her, her tone icy. That's not what the papers show, Mrs. Hood. Shall we review them again? The children's reaction to learning a carefully edited version of events is heartbreaking. Thomas, the oldest, 14, locked himself in his room for days. Emma had stopped playing her violin, and the instrument case was gathering dust in the corner of her room. Lucas, too young to fully understand the complexities of adulthood, simply asks when he'll see his dad again. Soon, Marissa promised, though she wasn't sure if it was true. The light in her children's eyes, once so bright and innocent, dimmed by the weight of adult deception. Bruce tries to reach out to his biological children through his attorney by sending a letter. Alex intercepts it through Miranda, adding it to the growing file of evidence. He's trying to establish a parental relationship now, Miranda read with apparent disgust, after 15 years of playing family friend and godfather. Divorce proceedings proceeded at an unprecedented pace due to overwhelming evidence and Marissa's eventual capitulation. Financial settlements are brutal but clean, leaving no room for future claims or disputes. Done, Miranda announced on a gray afternoon, sliding the final documents across her desk. Once you sign these, you're legally free of them all. Alex's pen pauses above the signature line. The children's trust is absolutely safe. The trustee has been instructed that the funds are protected from attempted access by Marissa or Bruce. College and beyond will be taken care of. The pen scratched across the paper, somehow louder than it should have been. Years of marriage, family life, trust, and betrayal were reduced to a few signatures and legal seals. Outside Miranda's office window, Millbrook continues its daily rhythm, unaware that one of its most prominent families has just been officially disbanded. Snow began to fall, the first of the season, covering the town in a blanket of pure white that seemed to mock the idea of purity. One more thing, Miranda said, reaching for the last folder, the sale of your company. But Alex was already one step ahead of her, pulling out his own papers. The next phase of his plan was already underway, although only he knew its full scope. The sale of the company was arranged weeks ago, with terms negotiated through an intermediary to maintain absolute privacy. Everything is ready, he assured her, and the transfer will be completed by the end of the week. Miranda studies her client's face, noting the transformation that has occurred since their first meeting a few weeks ago. That betrayed husband had become something else, harder, more focused, more dangerous in its calm certainty. What are you going to do now? She asked, though she suspected he wouldn't give her a full answer. Alex stood up and looked out at the falling snow. In his mind's eye, he could see the next step unfolding, each step calculated and precise. But these plans will be his alone, shared only with those who need to know specific parts. Now, he said, I disappear. Snow continues to fall outside, erasing tracks and covering signs, making everything look clean and new. But beneath that pristine surface, Millbrook is changing. 3 marriages have ended. A financial empire is disintegrating. A family is broken, and Alexander Hood is about to disappear, leaving a trail of destruction that will reshape the town's social landscape for years to come. Alex discovers that the art of disappearing requires as much precision as the revenge he's just orchestrated. Every step must be carefully planned, and every trace thoughtfully erased or redirected. Selling his company to a competitor was just the first step in a complex game on a personal chessboard. Luther Haney's Singapore office overlooks Marina Bay, the city-state's famous skyline reflected in the water like the promise of a new beginning. The old college friend immediately understood Alex's urgent call and didn't ask any questions about urgency or the need for confidentiality. Everything is arranged, Luther assured him over a secure video call, his image slightly distorted by the encryption, the apartment, the necessary introductions, the basic infrastructure you'll need. When can you leave? Alex looked around his nearly empty home office, where most of his personal belongings had been packed or disposed of. The sale of the company closes tomorrow. I'll be on a plane the day after tomorrow. The mechanism of disappearance proved to be extraordinarily complex. Miranda Hughes handled the legal aspects, making sure everything was properly documented while not revealing any information about his destination. Gustavo Goodrich has created a maze of financial transfers that will make tracking his movements nearly impossible. Your assets are secure, Gustavo confirmed in their last meeting, and the transfer will be finalized through various jurisdictions over the next few weeks. By the time anyone thought to check, the traces had cooled. The hardest part is not the logistics, but the kids. Alex spent his last night in his study, writing 3 letters that would be delivered over the next few years. Each one explains his actions, his love, and his reasons for leaving. Miranda will keep the letters until the right time, when they are big enough to understand. Dear Thomas, he began the first letter, his pen dangling over the expensive letterhead. By the time you read this, you will be 18 years old, and you will know the truth about everything that has happened. He wrote until dawn, pouring his heart into each letter, explaining his choices, his love, and his hopes for their future. The trust fund will ensure their education and opportunities, but these letters will give them something that money can't buy: understanding. The day of his departure came, accompanied by crisp winter mornings. His home, now devoid of personal belongings, echoes with memories he will never revisit. He walked through each room one last time, remembering the life he had built and lost. In the kitchen, where family breakfast used to be filled with air and laughter and the aroma of coffee. In the living room, where Emma used to practice her violin while Lucas set up his Lego city on the carpet. And in Thomas's room, where father and son used to spend countless hours discussing soccer strategies and school projects. His last stop was his office, where it all began that fall evening. The windows still overlooked the garden, although the flowers were now long dead and buried by the first snows of winter. He touched the glass one last time and remembered Marissa's voice, floating up through the darkness and shattering his world. Luther's arrangement proved flawless. A private car arrived on time with a discreet and professional driver. Alex's luggage, carefully selected to reveal nothing about his destination, was loaded silently. The first flight was to London, Luther explained in their last call, and then was a series of connections that would have made tracking impossible. By the time someone realizes you've left, you'll be in a place they never thought to look. Miranda met with him in her office to finalize a review of the arrangements. Everything is in place, she confirmed, her usual businesslike tone slightly softer. And the letters to the children are safe in my private safe. The trust fund arrangement is ironclad. The sale of the company is complete. She paused, studying his face. Are you sure about this? Alex nodded and put the file in his briefcase. It's the only way. They all took everything from me slowly, bit by bit over 15 years. Now I choose to leave on my own terms. What should I tell them when they ask? Tell them what you want to say. By then, I'll have left. The airport's international terminal hummed before dawn. Alex carries his new papers through security, each step taking him farther away from the life he knows. His cell phone, his old cell phone, lies silently in the safe in Miranda's office along with every traceable link to his past. As he waited at the gate, he thought about what he would be leaving behind. The ruins of his marriage, the betrayal of his mother, the children he had raised and loved, who would have to find their own way without him. The company he had built from scratch, now sold to competitors who would remake it on their own terms. But he's also leaving something else behind. That naive trust that allowed him to be lied to by others for years. That belief in family bonds that can't be broken. The assumption that love is enough to ensure loyalty. When his flight was announced, morning light streamed through the huge windows of the airport. Alex stands up and puts his carry-on luggage on his back. He handed his boarding pass to the gate agent without looking back at the terminal, at the city beyond, at the life he was leaving behind. Alex closes his eyes as the plane rises into the dawn sky on its final pass over Millbrook. Below him, his past became smaller and smaller and smaller until it disappeared altogether, lost in the clouds that separated him from everything he once believed to be real. In his briefcase, Luther's detailed instructions awaited, along with new identification and banking information. Somewhere in the world, a new life was taking shape, one that would be entirely his own, undisturbed by the web of lies that had haunted him for years. The plane climbed higher, leaving Millbrook, its secrets and its betrayals far behind. Alexander Hood, the betrayed husband, the cheated son, the non-biological father, disappears into the morning sky and becomes someone else entirely. a man whose story has yet to be written. In his wake, he leaves behind a town in turmoil, a family in ruins, and a legacy of truth that shocks the carefully maintained facade of Millbrook's most respected citizens. But most of all, he left on his own terms, choosing the manner and moment of his disappearance, denying them the satisfaction of witnessing the effects of their betrayal. Miranda Hughes stood at her office window and watched the condensed wake of Alex's plane dissolve into the winter sky. On her desk, 3 sealed letters waited, each marked with a future date and a child's name. The final pieces of Alexander Hood's elaborate exodus are in place. Snow continues to fall on Millbrook, covering everything in pure white, as if trying to erase the events of the past few weeks. But beneath that pristine surface, nothing will ever be the same again. The man who exposed 15 years of lies has disappeared, leaving behind a town forever changed by the truth he uncovered. The Singapore skyline shimmers in the pre-dawn sky as Alexander Hood reviews the final acquisition documents. At 52, he hardly resembles the man who fled Millbrook a decade ago. His dark hair now bore a prominent silver streak at his temples, and years of martial arts training had transformed his once soft programmer's physique into lean muscle. But the biggest changes were not physical. They were written in the steel of his gaze and the quiet confidence in his movements. The Millbrook Technology Park acquisition documents are ready, Mr. Hood, his administrative assistant Wei announced, placing a leather folder on his desk, and the board meeting is scheduled for 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Alex checks his Patek Philippe watch, marking his first billion in a small splurge, and nods. Thanks, Wei. Is the video conference ready? Yes, sir, although I still think you should consider taking care of this yourself. Alex's lips rose slightly. Occupying the top 10 floors of Singapore's most prestigious commercial building, H Innovations is a far cry from the humble beginnings of his business. This company has revolutionized supply chain management through blockchain technology and has become a major player in the Asian tech market. It's time to go home on his terms. Video conferencing screen flickers to life, showing the conference room at Millbrook Technology Park. 10 years had changed the faces around the table, but not the desperate hope in their eyes. The once arrogant Millbrook Technology has fallen on hard times, making it the perfect target for Alex's program. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Alex's voice carried the subtle authority of success. Let's discuss the future of Millbrook Technology Park. Board Chairman David Foster, with hair grayer than Alex remembers, leaned forward. Mr. Hood, while we appreciate the interest in Hood Innovations, some board members have expressed concern about a remote acquisition. Remote? There was no humor in Alex's laugh. Mr. Foster, I know Millbrook better than anyone in that room. I built my first company there. Recognition flashed across several faces and Foster's eyes widened. Alexander Hood. That same Hood used to dash. It's exactly the same one, Alex confirms, although I'd prefer we focus on the business rather than the history. The proposed acquisition is comprehensive, and Hood Innovations will establish its Western headquarters there, completely revitalizing the technology park. The numbers are impressive enough to dispel any objections about his past. This will bring hundreds of jobs to Millbrook, Foster mused, flipping through the proposal, and the economic impact will be transformative. Your tech center is struggling because it's never evolved, Alex added, and we're going to change that. Hood Innovations focuses on next-generation supply chain solutions, blockchain technology, AI integration, automated logistics, everything the modern tech sector needs. The board's questions were technical, focusing on finances and implementation timelines. No one dared mention the scandal that drove him out of Millbrook 10 years ago, though Alex could see that knowledge in their eyes. When the meeting ended, Foster cleared his throat. One more thing, Mr. Hood. Your return will generate considerable local interest. I understand. Alex's voice stays neutral. My PR team will handle any media inquiries. Now shall we sign? Digital signatures are exchanged with clinical precision and contracts are executed. Alex sat back in his ergonomic chair and watched the board members leave and turn from a conference room thousands of miles away. 10 years of preparation have culminated in this moment. Wei came in with a fresh cup of green tea, another habit Alex had acquired in Asia. Congratulations, sir. Should I start making arrangements for the transition team? Yes, Wei. Alex turned to look at the Singapore skyline. Book me a penthouse in Great Millbrook. It's time for me to go home. News of Hood Innovations' acquisition of Millbrook Technology Park broke during the morning trading session. Financial analysts praised the strategic expansion, while local Millbrook media scrambled to connect the dots between the Singapore-based tech giant and their town's most notorious scandal. 3 days later, Alex watched the coverage from his private jet, sipping single malt scotch as the headlines scrolled across his tablet. Hood Innovations acquires struggling Millbrook Technology Park. Return of the Prodigal Son. The billion-dollar return of Alex Hood from scandal to success. The renaissance of Alexander Hood. The flight from Singapore to Boston's Logan International Airport gave him time to review the changes he had orchestrated. Hood's innovative Western headquarters will transform the technology park into a first-class facility. The local economy, which has stagnated in recent years, will undergo a renaissance, and Alexander Hood will return, not as a victim of betrayal, but as the architect of Millbrook's future. After Logan landed, Alex found the vehicle he'd picked out waiting, a midnight blue Bentley Continental, understated but undoubtedly powerful. The drive to Millbrook gave him time to refamiliarize himself with the landscape of his past. The town had changed less than he expected, the same Victorian houses still lining the main streets, their exteriors perhaps slightly more weathered. The shopping district shows signs of a struggling economy, with more empty storefronts than he remembers, but the future is already visible in the construction equipment and renovations underway as he nears Tech Park. The Grand Millbrook, the town's only luxury hotel, has meticulously prepared his penthouse suite. From the window, Alex can see his old neighborhood, including the house where his life collapsed. New families now live there, unaware of the drama that once played out within those walls. "Welcome back to Millbrook, Mr. Hood," the hotel manager said, handing him his key card. "Is there anything else we can do for you?" Alex smiled, his expression giving nothing away about what he was thinking. "No, thanks. Everything is just as it should be." That night, he stood at his penthouse window and watched the sun set over the town that had made and broken him. Tomorrow, the business of transformation will begin. Hood Innovations will reshape Millbrook's tech landscape, and the return of its CEO will force the town to confront its past. His cell phone buzzed with a message from Miranda Hughes. "Everything's ready." As planned, the children received their letters last month. Alex nodded and put his phone back in his pocket. The first act of his return is complete. Now comes the harder part, confronting the people whose lives have been changed by his disappearance and showing them exactly what they've underestimated. Millbrook's lights twinkle below, a constellation of memories and possibilities. Alexander Hood has returned with the power to change the future of the town. That betrayed husband has become something more majestic, a force for change that will transform Millbrook into a testament to his resilience and success. The Hood Innovations welcome party fills the ballroom of Greater Millbrook, bringing together the town's business and social elite. Alex stood, taking in the scenery at face value, but actually observing the crowd. A decade of business dealings in Asia taught him the value of careful observation. He noticed how the crowd unconsciously polarized itself. Those who remembered the scandal kept a respectful distance, while young entrepreneurs and tech professionals were drawn to him and eager to connect with the billionaire CEO. The power dynamic has shifted seismically since he left. "Mr. Hood," a familiar voice made him turn. Marissa stood there, her blonde hair now streaked with gray, wearing a dress that had gone out of style. The years have not been kind to her, etching lines of worry around her eyes that cosmetics can't quite hide. "Dr. Reynolds," he replied coldly, using her maiden name. "This is a private corporate activity. I need to talk to you about the kids," she insisted, her voice low but urgent. "About support dash. The trust has provided everything as promised." Alex interrupted her, his tone carrying the authority of the board. "Your financial difficulties are your own problem." Her face reddened. "They're your children too. Regardless of biology, you raised them." "Until I find out about 15 years of systematic deception," he concluded, taking a discreet sip of his whiskey. "How's Bruce doing these days?" "I hear the accounting firm keeps him busy." The mention of Bruce made her wince. Forced to accept a position as a junior accountant in the wake of the collapse of his financial empire, Bruce Cummins' reputation is ruined, and the once powerful financial advisor is reduced to reconciling other people's accounts. You've proved your point, Marissa hissed. You've won. You're successful. We're struggling. Isn't that enough? Alex turned to her fully, his expression cold. This isn't about winning, Marissa. It's about consequences. Every choice has consequences. Yours, Bruce's, my mother's, and mine. I choose to rebuild. What did you choose? Before she could respond, a flurry of movement at the entrance to the ballroom caught their attention. Thomas, Emma, and Lucas, now 24, 22, and 19 respectively, stood in the doorway, their presence causing a murmur in the crowd. Alex has of course seen the photos, and Miranda will be updating them regularly with major life events. But seeing them as adults in person made his chest tighten. Thomas has grown into his features and looks so much like Bruce, it's amazing. Emma carried herself with the grace of a dancer, her chestnut hair elegantly brushed upwards. Lucas, the youngest, holds a familiar envelope in his hand, a letter Alex left for Miranda. Dad, Thomas began, his voice deeper than Alex remembered. Or should we call you Mr. Hood now? It's up to you, Alex replied cautiously. I assume you've read the letter? Emma took a step forward, her movements precise. We read. All those years we thought you'd abandoned us, but you kept an eye on us, didn't you? Anonymous college letters of recommendation for internships that seemed to pop up at just the right time. The trust is designed to secure your future, Alex explained, aware of the audience gathered around him. And your choices are your own. Lucas, who had just started at MIT, finally spoke up. Why didn't you tell us the truth then? Why wait until we're 18? Because you deserve a childhood free from the burden of adult betrayal, Alex replied, meeting each of them in turn. And your mother's and Bruce's choices are not burdens for you to bear. Marissa let out a choked sound, but Emma silenced her with a look that said a lot about their relationship. Over the years, we've made our own judgments, she said calmly, watching how everyone deals with the consequences of what happens. The letter explains everything. But we've figured most of it out, Thomas added. The way Mom and Bruce acted after you left, how Grandma tried to buy our favorites with gifts while living on a reduced allowance. Speaking of Caroline, Alex intoned with a hint of steel, how is my mother doing? Living at Sunset Grove Retirement Community, Lucas offers, she tried to convince everyone there that she was just choosing to downsize. The irony is lost on no one. Caroline, once the grand conductor of Millbrook's social scene, now lives in a modest retirement facility on a strict stipend. Her role in the deception cost her not only her wealth, but her social standing. Mr. Hood, Way appeared beside him. The Technopark board members have arrived. They are eager to discuss the refurbishment schedule. Alex nods, then turns back to his former family. My office is open to all three of you at all times. Not for the money, the trust fund handles that part, but for anything else you might need. The choice to stay in touch is yours. As he made his way toward the waiting board members, he heard Marissa's last desperate attempt. Alex, please. The hospital board is reviewing my position. A word from you. He stopped, not turning around. Your choice, your consequences, Marissa. I learned that lesson 10 years ago. Now it's your turn. The rest of the evening was spent in a blur of business discussions and social etiquette, but Alex noticed that Thomas, Emma, and Lucas stayed for the duration of the evening, weaving their way through the crowd with the easygoing attitude of young people who had grown up in Millbrook's social scene. They neither hide their connection to him nor flaunt it. They just show up and make their own choices. That night, in his penthouse suite, Alex received 3 separate text messages. From Thomas, lunch next week? There's a new place downtown. From Emma, my dance company performs next month. Send tickets to you. From Lucas, could use your insights on school blockchain programs. He smiled and saved their numbers. The confrontation he had anticipated for 10 years had turned into something unexpected, not an end, but perhaps a new beginning. The transformation of the Millbrook Technology Park is proceeding rapidly under the guidance of Hood Innovations. The construction team worked around the clock to convert the outdated office space into a state-of-the-art research and development facility. As new employees arrived, the town began to hum. Home prices rose, and local businesses experienced a renaissance. From his office inside the newly renovated main building, Alex watched his vision take shape. Glass-walled spaces provide panoramic views of the campus, and Hood Innovations' signature blue and silver logo now adorns each building. The latest hiring figures, sir, Wei showed a tablet displaying the data. We've hired over 300 local residents, and we're opening up another 200 positions in the next quarter. Great. How's the training program coming along? Excellent. The partnership with Millbrook Community College is showing results. Even Bruce Cummins applied for an accounting position, even though HR flagged a potential conflict. Alex's lips curved slightly. Let him apply. Decisions based on merit only, no positive or negative preferences. The irony of this is not lost on either of them. That Bruce, once the mastermind of a complex financial scheme, may end up handling payroll for a company run by the man he betrayed. A knock at the door interrupted their discussion. Miranda Hughes enters, still as elegant as ever, despite the decade that has passed. Your mother is here, she announces bluntly. Security called up from the lobby. Alex leaned back in his chair, considering. Caroline has been trying to arrange meetings since his return, sending messages through various intermediaries. Her latest attempt, unsolicited, is a classic Caroline route tactic. Let her come up, he decided. Wei, please stay. Caroline appeared a few minutes later, looking smaller than he remembered. Designer clothes and perfect makeup couldn't hide the effects of time and reduced conditions on her. She entered his office holding her handbag like a shield. Alexander, she began, her voice slightly shaky. You're doing so well. What do you want, mother? She flinched at his tone, but continued. I thought maybe now that you're back and so successful, we could try to repair our relationship. Our relationship ended the day I found out you helped orchestrate 15 years of deception, Alex replied calmly. The annual support payments will continue as agreed, provided you keep your distance. I'm your mother, she protested, and I do everything because I want the best. No. Alex's voice carries the weight of years of reflection. Everything you do is about control. You think you know better than I do what's best for my life, so you helped Bruce and Marissa cheat on me for 15 years. Those are your choices, mother, and these are the consequences. Caroline's mask cracks. A retirement community is not where I should be. Surely you can see that now with your resources. The monthly stipend is generous enough for your needs. Alex interrupted her. Wei, please escort my mother out. Make sure security updates her status. No one is scheduling a visit. As Caroline is taken away, her shoulders slumped. Alex turns back to the window. Below, he could see new employees entering the building, their hood innovation ID badges glinting in the morning light. A few weeks later, 3 messages appeared on Alex's cell phone. From Thomas, lunch next week? There's a new place downtown. From Emma, my dance company performs next month. Send tickets to you. From Lucas, could use your insights on school blockchain programs. Alex saved their numbers and a smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. Outside his office window, the Millbrook skyline shimmers in the setting sun. He saw a small figure in the distance hurrying across the street. Marissa, hurrying to her shift at the small community clinic. Her hospital position was lost long ago, and her career never recovered. On the other side, Bruce Cummins walks out of the Hood Innovation Building, folder in hand. Now, he's just a mid-level accountant handling the payroll of a company created by a former love interest. His luxury cars, customized suits, and financial empire are all gone. He got into an ordinary Toyota and drove to his rented one-room apartment. Alex turned back to his desk and tapped his fingers on a design drawing, the future plan for the Millbrook Technology Park. He gazes at himself in the glass reflection. 52-year-old Alexander Hood, no longer the cheated husband, but a man who has reinvented his life on his own terms. His phone rang, and it was Lucas. Can we talk about that Singapore position on Friday? I'd like to discuss my ideas with you first. Sure, Alex replied. I'd love to hear it. He hung up and looked out the window at the twilight. The shadows of the past have receded, and the future belongs to him. Somewhere in Millbrook, Caroline sits alone in her small apartment, watching the news about Hood innovations on TV, and the once glorious social status is long gone. That's the price of choice. This is what happens when you betray. Alex closed the design drawings and turned off the lights in his office. Instead of exploding in anger, his revenge is a carefully choreographed and calmly executed plan that unfolds one scene at a time until every participant pays their fair share. Now he has more: success, peace, and a connection built on authenticity and choice. The lights of the city come on in the darkness while Alexander Hood stands atop everything he's created, savoring the sweetest revenge of all, a life of success. That's the end of today's story. For more captivating tales, hit subscribe and never miss an episode.